Muse's Will of the People, the 9th album from the Stadium Rock Mega Titans, where I think, regardless of where you're at with Muse and their kind of creative trajectory, I think they're an interesting band for us to cover, because they are pretty much like, short of your AC/DCs and Guns N' Roses and Metallicas and so on, basically the biggest band that we can cover and feel like they're in some way for us. You know, like Foo Fighters and stuff like that is the only stuff that's beyond.
Yeah, like you can say like Foo Fighters, Green Day, but again, are we going to want to cover Green Day at this point?
Like a Wembley Stadium headlining band. And, you know, when they go and do a download festival or something, it's almost like it's one of those points where it's like, this is one of just the giants of the world kind of taking the moment out of their schedule to visit us. Like, they are galactically huge across the globe, one of the very biggest bands of the 21st century, who do lean heavily, very heavily, on rock riffs, eclectic genre-bending ideas, and an awful lot of ludicrous rock pomp and bombast. Muse's thing lately is to make me feel like a crazy person for saying they're one of the greatest bands of all time.
My thing with Muse is I think they're a social experiment to see what daft shit you can get past of as being called genius.
And I do believe that, right? And, you know, but the creative output over the last handful of years has taken such a turn where, Sam, you and I have been friends for a long time.
Yes.
And we have bumped heads over Muse on a number of occasions. And now comes the day where we actually have to have a real conversation, professionally and critically, about it. It's been a long time in the making.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, like, I have, like, my thing with Muse has been kind of like, I do really like their output up to a point, and then I think from a certain point onwards, they have been terrible.
I want to say that I am so much more into the idea of talking to you about simulation theory and now Will of the People era Muse, the last 5 years, than I would be the Second Law or the Resistance era, where we might actually get into an argument, because these last couple records have gone so far off the deep end that I think all of our relationships with Muse, at least in terms of like the TNM audience, have altered a bit. And I think it's endearing because Muse are not at their creative peak right now. They are nowhere near it. In my view, that period ended a bit later than many people put it. I think if you think the Resistance is a slump record, I think you are a fool, and I really admire the Second Law as well. But I had a moment on Simulation Theory which threw me so far for a loop after a few years of kind of struggling to come to terms with like what was going on with a band who were unbelievably important and formative for me. And that record is so off the deep end in an extremely bizarre and jarring way, and I kind of had to sever a part of myself that still wanted Muse to be the band that gave us like multiple straight masterpieces in a row in the 2000s. After accepting that, though, a year later, after that record, after seeing them on the tour with the fucking trombone alien dancers or whatever the hell was going on, after a year of my head going propaganda, like Muse began to speak exclusively and primarily to the part of me that just wanted fucking chaos. The part of my brain that looks at the cover of Weezer's The Red Album and goes, fuck yeah, you wear that cowboy hat. Like, you can only be hit with Terry Crews' synthwave werewolf video so many times before something inside you snaps, and before you'll know it, you are part of the trombone dance troupe.
I get that. I do, because again, like, I almost did, like, prefer Simulation Theory to some of what came before it.
I think some people feel similarly because it's so fucking stupid.
It's
like,
so off the deep end. Like, it's so, that's it. It's so off the deep end. That moment was like, well, at least this is fun. At least, like, like, I do not think Simulation Theory is a good album, but goddamn, is it good for a laugh? Like, and you know what? I see the value in that. I can enjoy, like, I can watch a terrible movie and have a great time. Simulation Theory is the album version of that kind of experience.
And I really came to admire and even treasure the fact, you know, this is what I told myself to cope, that if someone, like now, if someone says Muse are absolute shit on these records, in the way I would have, like, bristled at that if someone says that about The Resistance, like, I don't find such strong ground to stand on with these, to argue that in a way I once would, but that Muse continue to fill me with glee and pun not intended, hysteria, and make me go like, what? And then 2 listens into that same song, dance like a fucking twat, instead of just decline in a boring and depressing way. I love that so much.
Like, this is my problem with, like, Muse, say, their 2010, their kind of, like, early to mid 2010s output is I just found it boring. Like, that is as simple as it gets for me, is I found those albums to be so dull and po-faced and, like, lacking in anything that I could find interesting. And then taking a sudden pivot into complete chaos and insanity, like, I can go with that at this point, because, like, again, there is stuff on this album that I think is not good, but at the same time, I was smiling.
And so when we were getting singles from Will of the People, and we got Compliance, and we got a song with, you know, one of the heaviest Muse riffs of the modern era, but attached to a electro reggae song, like
Matt rapping.
Like, I was really looking forward to the day that we could have this chat and figure out what the fuck's going on. And the other thing that's going on with this record is, aside from just, like, again, the carnage of it, is ever since The Second Law, they've kind of adopted this on-off approach to albums when it comes to specifically the heavy rock element, in that they do something genre eclectic and weird, and then they do a rock album. That's what Drones was after that.
The Second Law.
And then they do something extremely genre eclectic and weird again. Then they do a rock album. That's this, right? Compared to Simulation
Theory. But this is with Simulation Theory's Pants on Head insanity.
And the talk ahead of this was, you know, the teaser clip of Won't Stand Down that we heard, of, like, basically a breakdown. And it is at least kind of a theme or component of this is Muse leaning, like, a little bit more into metal. And while it's always a thing with Muse since the kind of more esoteric side of Matt's writing unfortunately disappeared into vapor, the rock albums lean more heavily into the kind of, like, populist rebellion, rise up
Politics.
against your masters thing that they constantly churn out. Like, Drones had it, you know, you're all drones, with the cover art that looked like a Guardian cartoon. And now this album is literally called Will of the People. And, you know, I think, like most bands as well, who kind of at least have a dalliance in politics, there's a point right now where everything that you maybe once did with kind of subtlety and precision, things are so out in the open and obvious right now everywhere.
This album is the I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards, isn't it?
Like, so what do you really do? But this thing is, though, this album is like Drones if it was mental like Simulation Theory.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's why, again, I would take this over Drones in a second, because it is so daft and like, when you hit play on this album and you are greeted to that Will of the People chant, and I was like, I'm in, I'm strapped in, let's go.
This record is unbelievably bizarre. In a way, even more than Simulation Theory, because at least in a way, the theme on Simulation Theory was kind of the madness, right? Like, you've got your VR headset on, and it is the garish, most self-consciously stupid thing that they've ever done, that's going to go demented, all these kind of, you know, crazy ideas, track to track. This one seems to be more grounded, and then does things that are so wildly confusing that you feel like are you having me on here? Like, how much of this is serious or not? And for a start,
no, I'm saying like that thing of how much this is serious. I have no idea, because I'm like, I wonder if Matt Bellamy thinks this is like some really, like, dramatic, serious statement he's making, but then it's like, it's so daft and so, like, wacky.
For a start, it's only 37 minutes long.
Big fan of that.
But genuinely a little shocking for a Muse fan. Like, this is a band that we associate with, like, modern day prog, right? And they've never gone that in and out before. So there is a slight effect to this album of being bewildered and then left before you know it and before you've even really figured out where you are with it. Will of the People, yes, everyone on Earth has already pointed out that it's The Beautiful People by Marilyn Manson. It's that, and it has, you know, a hook of the something people. I think it's kind of saved by having a winner of a Matt Bellamy riff that gives it such a hilarious bombast.
Like, really reminded me of Uprising a little bit, and like the drum beat and all that as well. But that riff is, properly bombastic and really fun. And Matt Bellamy's delivery on some of the lyrics, like, it's when they will throw the baby out with the bath water. Like, he's so
that bounce that it gets,
Yeah.
like, it's almost, you know, compared to maybe, as you were saying, Drones, when Muse tried to go political and get really preachy in a kind of like downer way. This song, I find it really easy to ignore that side of it because of just how joyous it is. Like, the funk falsetto hook that he does on it, and that riff at the end when it actually slams. Like, you can't tell me that in a stadium of people, that riff at the end won't pop the fuck off.
I mean, like, straight up, like, as well, like, this album is so insanely catchy. Like,
It really is.
it really, like, I can't even deny it. Like, this is such a catch. There's so many hooks across the album, whether it's that Will Other People Chant or whether it's the riffs and everything. There is so much about this album that will just get in your head and is perfectly designed to get a stadium bouncing. Like, I can't argue with that.
Compliance
Dun, dun,
was...
dun, dun, dun.
I think this was the second single that we got, and it's even dafter than what the first one was. And I'm amazed and actually so pleased that it's not the daftest song on the album. But that was a moment of, like, again, what, like, kind of adjustment for what this record is going to be. Because, you know, and you had to get past waves of people saying Muse had written an anti-vax song when it came out, which...
I mean, I can kind of see where people are coming from.
I think they cause problems for themselves by being vague. I don't think it is. Muse, for one point, they are an internationally touring band right now when certain members of other prominent bands aren't. So
Yes.
I would assume that they are vaxxed. It's more a distrust of authority selling an opiate to the masses in the promise of taking all their pain away, which is always a valid topic, even if Muse continue to do that thing in the most, like, on-the-nose, eye-rolling way.
That's it. It's the most kind of like generic kind of like, oh, controlling bodies bad, resist, and all that. Like, there are other moments in this album again where you can go, oh, you're getting really close to the line there, Matt. Don't sing that with your full chest.
But
But
that synth at the start, it makes me want to drown myself in some kind of brightly coloured alcohol. Like, it's such an immediate Pavlov's dog kind of
it's
and
so
I
garish and so over to the top.
I can't help it. The bass guitar is going so hard on that track. The beat on it is actually kind of similar to when Weezer try and do something funky, just that kind of like white guy pop to it. The bridge almost sounds like beatboxing.
Well, that bit in the bridge, like.
But mate, I think from second listen of this song when it was released, the confusion in me gave way to the part of my brain that kicks in, that heard that hook and that beat and just went, yo, I can have fun with that. It's one of the most stupidly catchy songs of the year.
Again, it's what I mean. It's just been in my head, and I'm just like, I hate it. I hate that it's stuck in my head, but it's so big. And again, it's so stupid. It's so daft. And like I said, like they're like Knight Rider music bridge, like again, like ridiculous. But they're so. There is conviction to it, and they know they're being overblown and ridiculous and daft. But
and this was the thing when I heard Propaganda for the first time, I was like, "What the fuck have you done?" And then again, fast forward a year later to me seeing them play that song live in an arena, and it was absolutely hilarious fun. The again, that's one was like so fucking bizarre when we were getting like, oh, this is going to be a more metal leaning record or whatever, and suddenly that turns up. Fucking wild. There are, the really heavy by, like, modern day Muse standard moments, which are, again, on that kind of idea. Matt literally said in an interview this week, he was like, we know we can't compete with Slipknot. We're just taking like a tiny little bit of that ethos into what we do. But there are parts of this where we were all anticipating, Muse are going to incite some crowd killing or whatever. Won't Stand Down was, it's like a kind of open synth line that always makes it sound like Take On Me is going to start and come in.
I keep thinking that.
As we said when we covered it, clunky as fuck structure. Like, they've got a weird problem these days of having like very ill-fitting songs that feel like two or three kind of awkwardly glooped together, and it does make me sad how Matt's approach to vocal patterns has like so dramatically gone downhill from the days that he had like a real ethereal elegance to them into kind of the repetitive pop vocal lines. That riff though, it's a shame I don't love the song more because of how kind of shonky it is, but that chorus with like a huge, actually heavy stadium rock riff slamming in, and then Matt surrounded by, you know, the synths they've been fucking with since Bliss, hitting that falsetto at the end of it. It's like, that's Muse. I know that band.
I think I said that when this song came out. I was like, I think the verses are awful. It's a really awkward transition, but that chorus again, it's undeniably big riff. Matt's vocals, you get that little glimpse back to, again, what like you love about Matt in the best years of Muse. And then the breakdown does go really hard.
It does go hard. It does make me feel like that clip of, you know, his son in the car just being like, yeah. Like, fortunately they do, for at least one song, cut out the nonsense and just go, all right, here's a great rock song. And I need one of those songs. It's Kill or Be Killed on here. I will take an album of Insanity, but give me one coherently classic Muse rock song. You know, it's the Handler on drums or Reapers. Like, there's Psycho on that album being fucking goofy as shit with a big riff, and then the Handler going, okay, here's one for the sane Muse fans. And that here, great riff. Can't believe that riff hasn't been written before, actually. It feels so obvious. It's like halfway between Firestarter and Bodies by Drowning Pool.
I'm convinced I've heard that intro, that build-up intro riff. I'm convinced I've heard it before, but I can't put my finger on what it is, and I don't know if it's just because it's that infectious and that big that it sounds like something that I must have heard before. It's
destructive though, heavy and dramatic too with that chorus, and that was like, that's a sigh of relief when that comes in, because it's like, oh, thank God, we've got something that is classically good instead of just like paradoxically good. Still funny with that. There's still
a little daft bit that the yeah.
Like he's Randy Marsh as Lord, but that is very Muse, and that does have the fucking beat down part in it.
That breakdown is really hard. Good song.
Euphoria is a good song as well to have there in terms of like straight ahead 3-minute Muse banger of the kind of more pop song variety. The synth bassist makes me feel like I'm in an 80s workout video. It's great, but the chorus is,
I had workout Muse in my notes.
Yeah, like big and rallying chorus, good 80s workout banger. Muse, Write More Maniacs, cool. In the middle of this fucking record though is, I'm so pleased that we had Saxons and Vikings on the Monomarth record so recently to giggle about. And then on the very next show, we get this. One of the most insane things I've ever heard. You Make Me Feel Like It's Halloween.
I love this song. It's one of my favourite Muse songs in fucking ever. I can't. When I hit play on it and it came on and I was like, wait, what? Muse have gone Scooby-Doo. And I was like, I'm in, go, do it. Like,
from those, like the bark organs at the start, my eyes widened with a kind of like simultaneous horror and excitement that I can only associate with the bit of Malignant when she drops down to her knees in the jail cell.
That feeling, yeah.
I cannot explain how this song makes me feel.
I love it. I genuinely love it. Like, I can only explain how. Is that it's a Scooby-Doo song. Like, it's got everything though. It's got the most like spooky haunted house like synth.
That bass line, when it comes in, pops so hard. It's actually kind of heavy, like how much it slaps you out of the speakers in the kind of, you know, Thriller tradition. If the person who wrote that was fucking just like should be locked up, well, for other reasons, like, but you know, talking about fucking Matt's pop vocal lines on there, on
You Make Me Feel Like It's Halloween.
On something so out of this world, like frivolous and unself-conscious. When you turn out the lights, my God, the robot, the call and response Halloween robot, like the Misery sample, the Shining like quotes that are going on. It's fucking August. I kept thinking that I'd like dreamed this up and that next time I'd look back at the promo it'd be missing and I'd have no one to share this like fever dream experience with.
The bit I Jim when I hit play on it, I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
I didn't know what like my fight or flight kicked in, except I ended up just staying and dancing.
Like, but it's so fun. And the thing is as well, right? The thing of the song, that solo, that guitar solo when that kicks in is just rocking, and I'm like, this song has everything. Like, I've been too harsh on you, Muse, if you can do this to me.
And then it ends on like a perfect, like, classical theory chord cadence, like, with something.
Like, honestly, if Muse can do this, and the funny thing is it comes after Ghost, which is a really, like, quite overblown but sincere piano ballad.
this is the
and
thing.
then it goes into this.
This is meant to be the political album. What has this got to do with the will of the people?
It makes you feel like it's Halloween.
It's like I've got a fun idea for a tune, lads, and just whacked it on in the middle of the record with no regard for sequencing, and that makes it more fun.
I mean, that's it. It's like it's smack bang in the middle of the record. It's after this really like emotional, sincere piano ballad, and then before the big rock song, and there is just this 3 minutes of just absolute chaos and insanity, dressed up like a fucking like haunted house ride at a theme park.
Well, I saw that, I was listening to this and I saw that on the release day coming up the Friday, they were going to be releasing a music video for this song. And I have never been more excited for a music video in my life.
I watched the music video earlier today because I have to see it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was disappointed it turned out to be another kind of animated type one, because what I wanted was Matt Bellamy in a skeleton onesie, creeping around a haunted castle like Devon in the Vampira video. But the video of all the horror references and stuff, it's fun, including a Corey Taylor Slipknot mask at one point, which I can only hope is a reference to Muse themselves and the famous Sit the Fuck Down video involved in that mask. But can you imagine what it's going to be like live, though?
I want to see everyone bouncing along to this song and just like witness that, like, because there's just nothing quite like it. I don't know.
This is going to get played so much this Halloween. Like, it's going on all the Halloween playlists, but 2022, the official anthem of Halloween comes from Muse on their fucking Will of the People record. Sure,
I could imagine this song coming from like Ghost or someone. Like, it would feel less insane there. I mean, but here, like,
thematically, musically, like, this is only Muse in terms of just how fucking bananas like Matt is going on it and stuff. There are, I guess you said, what it's sandwiched between and stuff. There are like 3 kind of piano-led or kind of slower songs on the album. Liberation, I think, is the most unremarkable thing on the album.
It's the most shameless Queen ripoff you could possibly do.
Yeah, well, it's Muse doing one of their like Queen aping songs, but nowhere near as brilliant as they did it on United States of Erasure. So it's thus the bit I'm least interested in. Those thank you harmonies are pretty funny. It's just a bit redundant, doesn't add anything noteworthy to the Muse discography. Ghosts, it's very like Lloyd's advert, and maybe like you are so high on fucking Crazy Person fumes for a lot of this that something so pleasantly low key feels a bit out of place. But it's a well crafted song.
I think it's a good vocal performance from Matt. It's a nice like sort of come down moment amongst all the insanity.
Yeah, in a very traditional sense, Matt can play piano, and that song, it does at least have a coherent identity. The one of these songs that the Muse fan base, from what I have seen, seems to have actually globbed onto is Verona, which, credit to them, it is the most distinctly themselves of the ballad type songs, even though there's still a lot of U2 in there as well. But
the U2 guitars now one grated me a little bit.
I like it, they've always kind of done it. But when I say it's themselves, it's because it is histrionic as fuck.
This is the one where, again, the lyrics, I'm just like, oh, Matt, you're not helping yourself. Because there are some questionable, at best, lyrics on this one.
Yeah, Matt sounds great on it, though. Like, if you have a tolerance for Matt Bellamy's voice and how insane he gets, like, Verona is the sound of him absolutely owning his own vocal personality, as it is in 2022. Sounds massive as well. Like, kind of, imagine in a stadium environment, it's not always you hear, like, essentially a ballad and go, this sounds more like it's built for a venue of tens of thousands of people than like an intimate sound. And I think that is kind of the key to Muse, right? Because they are grand and they project all of their emotions outwards into the galaxy in the biggest, most world-shaking way. And I think the most defining facet that determines whether you connect with Muse or find them irritating as fuck is, to be honest, just how close that sensibility emotionally you personally are.
Yeah, like I said, like, this is just, it is larger than life. It's larger than anything could ever be. Like, galaxy brain, like, in its like scope and stupidity. Like, but if you can get on board with that, there is merit to what Muse are on about.
Yeah, as you say, there are parts on that song where he doesn't help himself in terms of like vagary and just poor choice of words in the current environment. But it is a pretty good song. We are fucking fucked. I think I would really, really like if it wasn't for the part where he goes, "We are fucking fucked." Like, it's got a kind of like mechanized, propulsive post-punk kind of feel to like the verses, and it's really, melancholic kind of downwards, and that pre-chorus as it's building, another world war, wildfires and earthquakes I foresaw, it sells that like eve of the apocalypse, everything about to tip over the edge of chaos, disaster. And then the chorus is just so stupid. It's like it lets out that tension. It's just
It's trying, like, it feels like they're trying to be kind of ironically funny with it, and I was like, you were almost onto something.
Yeah, they were almost there and then shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah, but I mean, again, that song goes off the rails in like the last minute.
It's got a ridiculous garage rock riff,
Like, because again, you get this big riff, but then you get this like, order!
Stockpile! Yeah, the Queen vocals. I like much more there than on the Queen ballad for just kind of like how energetic and fucking whiplash-inducing it is. But I don't know what's going on with this album emotionally. Like, that song is such like a, we're all done for... We've had our chance and we've blown it, and now the end is coming. It's like a cattle decapitation song if it was written by children. But then there's stuff that's, more quasi-inspirational. And then there's a fucking Halloween song. So it's not a great statement, and it is, unfortunately messy and vague in places that invites questioning, shall we say. I think they're kind of self-aware to a degree with it, though, because, just like they know that they're not actually going to be as heavy as Slipknot or these bands they say they're taking influence from. I found another interview where they're talking about Rage Against the Machine, who obviously are a big influence on the riffing in Muse. And Matt says similarly there, he's like, yeah, they're much more involved than us politically, and we don't, pretend to be on that kind of level. We are just bringing these things to a wide audience, I guess, whether that is anti-authoritarianism or just big riffs. And while the first part of that they do way cringier, the record's a hoot. Like, I'm not going to say the record is great, but I'm thoroughly entertained by it.
It should make me feel like it's Halloween. That song has improved my life significantly in the last week. I can't oversell it. I think that song is wonderful in just being the most ridiculous thing I've heard in a good while. Like, I'm so on board with that, and I'm like, the album could be rubbish, and I would still be like, got that song.
How come Weezer have given us a seasons project and we haven't got one from Muse who could really go there? But it's so damned OTT. Like, I don't even know if I can say it's clearly better than Simulation Theory, but it is tickling a similar part of my brain of just like wanton stupidity. And again, like, I'm a long time old school Muse fan, but this current era has become disconnected from that in my mind to just become rubbing my hands together. All right, show me what daft shit you got this time. Go where other bands are too sane not to.
Yeah, I can appreciate this album for its just insanity, and also the fact, like I say, probably the fact that they have trimmed a lot of the fat and have kept this out, like, by Muse standards, a really lean 37 minutes does mean I there was less for me to actually find irritating.
Yeah, like, as if I'm objectively looking at this as, like, where does it sit in the Muse catalogue or whatever, it's right down in the fucking bottom of Simulation Theory. Like, I can't, like, for me and how good I actually think the records are in terms of their ideas and so on, like, this era is the most, like, Jesus Christ, what has happened here? But I just can't bring myself to hate that, and instead I just fucking smile the whole way. So there you go. Will of the People by Muse.